I believe you can start whenever you'd like to. We're just,
Okay.
we're just waiting for, I mean, Jason, I don't think you need to wait for Jason.
Okay. All right, so do I call to order the public hearing first or the whole planning commission?
You're doing the public hearing first for the
Okay.
subdivision permit application.
Okay, so should I call the meeting to order on December 15th, 2021? This is a public hearing, and could I get a roll call of planning commission members, please?
Moore here.
Corrigan here.
Fox here.
Prendergast here. Okay. So I'm going to read the procedures for the public, the hearing. If everyone's ready, I don't know if everybody has a copy. I don't know if Sharon wants to put it up or not, but it is the planning commission's duty to be fair, impartial, and preserve due process for all participating in this hearing. The chair may impose time limits on participants if necessary. Okay, and now I am going to open the public hearing. And this is a public hearing for subdivision permit application SDV 21-01. Okay, and then I'm to read the following disclosure statements. The criteria which must be satisfied for approval of this action are listed in the city staff report. And I'm assuming all of the planning commission members have gotten that copy of that and read it. The public testimony must be directed to those criteria or other criteria in the plan or land use regulations which the testifier believes to apply to the decision. C is failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford, sufficient to afford the planning commission and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes an appeal based on that issue. And D is prior to the conclusion of this hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence, arguments, or testimony. The commission will decide whether the hearing will be continued to another date or whether the record will be left open for at least 7 days. Your testifying instructions states that the chairman states the following. If you're testifying, please state your name, residence address, and full mailing address. So if you're going to speak during the public hearing, those are requirements. If you're notified of a continuance, appeal, or other action on this application, please print your name and complete mailing address on the form in the back of the room, which obviously we're not there. Okay, and then I am to read the applicant information. Okay, let me see. I'm lost here a little bit, Walt or Sharon. Let's see. Do I read the whole application? Walt?
Just getting.
At this time, do I go through the whole application?
No, you just simply note that this is the time and place, and it's my job to read the staff report.
Okay. So I guess I'm lost on the procedures. Let's see. Give me a moment, I'm sorry. Chair reads the application, name of applicant. Chair does opinion just here. Okay, do I go ahead and ask if anyone challenges our authority to hear this, Walt? Because that's
Yes.
what. Okay, all right, so I'll just go on this list. Does anyone challenge the planning commission's jurisdiction to hear this application? Hearing none, I'll go on. If any member has a personal bias or conflict of interest, they shall declare it now. Hearing none. If any member of the commission has made a site visit, they shall state their impressions or observations. Anything from the commissioners? And then now I'm going to ask for the city staff report from Walt Wendowski.
Okay, thank you, Carol. Good evening. Um, Members of the Planning Commission, audience, for the record, my name is Walt Wendowski. I'm the contract planner for the city of Yam Hill. And again, this is the application for the Park Meadows subdivision. I think we're fairly familiar where the property is located. Contains 12.75 acres. For the record, is zone single-family residential R2. Standards in which this case will be decided are found in the Development Code, Chapter 11.08, Subdivisions and PUDs, and Chapter 11.20, Design Standards. The applicant in this case is looking to create a 57-lot subdivision. The lots will be from about 6,200 square feet to 8,200 square feet in size. Of the 57 lots, 45 will exceed 7,000 square feet in area, with a majority in the 7,500 to 7,800 square foot range. Hemlock, Elm, and Cedar Streets will be extended south into the property. These streets will be intersected by a new east-west street, 4th Street, which will connect to the existing 4th Street further to the east. The applicant intends to develop each lot with a single-family home. Subdivisions require planning commission review. And again, that's the purpose of this hearing. The city did mail out notice to area property owners and affected agencies. City engineer submitted a detailed report regarding the conditions on the property. That report is a part of the record and was submitted along with the staff report. I will briefly just summarize the conclusions here. With regard to sewer, the city engineer noted the development will increase average dry weather flow by a marginal amount. The project's new sewer systems will be watertight, less susceptible to inflow and infiltration associated with storm conditions. As a result, on balance, this development will have no measurable impact on the existing deficiencies with the treatment plant. With regard to water, in summary, he noted while the existing water system has several constraints, these constraints exist independent of the development, and the development will not significantly exacerbate any of the deficiencies. Water system improvements that the city engineer is recommending and proposed by the developer will have actually a net benefit to the city. With regard to the storm improvements, the proposed connection to the existing 40-inch culvert on 3rd Street will need to be evaluated during final engineering review. A direct outfall to the creek may be required. The preliminary plans show a storm linked through a series of catch basins. This configuration is not acceptable to the city, will need to be modified in the final stages. With regard to streets, the streets meet the right-of-way requirements. Of interest is Hemlock Street that runs north-south through the project located along the west side of the property. The city engineer is recommending that the right-of-way be extended to the south end of the property, but all the improvements end at the 4th Street intersection. So in other words, Hemlock will extend through this property to the south property boundary, but the improvements will be limited to the section of Hemlock from 3rd to 4th. Also, given the fact that this will not be a full street improvement, sidewalks will be limited to the east side. Finally, the applicant did provide a transportation analysis letter that showed that there are no traffic related concerns related to this development. Now, no other comments were received at the time of the report. Subsequent to this, we've received correspondence in opposition to the request. This will be noted during the opposition time. I'll just briefly note there was concerns with regard, significant concerns with regard to the availability of water, also the impacts on the local school system. Now, with regard to the subdivision itself, Chapter 11.08 establishes procedures and requirements to review a subdivision. Section 1108, 010, and 030 cover, and 020 cover the submittal requirements and the actual development process. I'll just note for the record, the applicant submitted a complete application, and this commission review is consistent with those requirements. The specific criteria for a subdivision are found in section 1108, 040, and subsection A requires the subdivision to comply with the chapter 1120. And I'd like to review those items that are found in 11.20.020. First, item A, the lots must meet the minimum lot size. Note for the record that based on the submitted plan, all lots exceed the 6,000 square foot minimum and also exceed the 60-foot width and 90-foot depth minimum requirements. As there are no slopes on this site that exceed 10%, the lot area is adequate. In no case does the lot depth of any parcel exceed the width by a factor of 3. Access, all lots must have a street access that meets the minimum requirements of the underlying zone, and in this case, all of them do. Flag lots and through lots are noted in this section. Neither of apply in this case, as the layout does not include any flag lots. The lot lines run at right angles, generally consistent with the code requirements. And also with regard to utility easements, these are generally, shall we say, figured out as part of the engineering review process and noted on the final. Now, section 11.20.030 contains additional design standards that apply to subdivisions. Generally, blocks are preferred to be less than 1,000 feet in area, and this layout is consistent with that requirement. The next two items, B and C, talk about traffic, circulation, and connectivity. In this case, this particular layout connects all the streets. It is easy to get in and exit this particular layout and makes all the connections. There are no dead ends and there are no cul-de-sacs. And so we do have street connectivity consistent with what the code requires. We also have provisions for access design standards. That does not apply in this case as there are no intervening walkways. It was also noted under, moving on to going back to 1108.040, item B, notes that all the lots must meet the minimum lot size requirements. And again, I will note that definitely does. Under item C, adequate public facilities must be available. Again, the city engineer wrote a report in support that there are sufficient facilities available or can be extended to the site to ensure our city requirements are met. Under 11.080.060 through 080, it talks about final plat requirements and also talks about the final plat review. For the record, these are just administrative process which the city and applicant will be required to go through if this is approved. Section 11.20.050 through 060 talk about improvement procedures. Again, these apply if the application is approved. Subsection 070 talks about either parkland designation or providing payment in lieu of dedicating a park. In this case, given the fact that we have a city park right next door to the property, staff is recommending that the applicant submit a payment in lieu of dedicating additional parkland. As the provisions go on, section 11.20050 requires the subdivision to conform with street requirements in chapter 11.24. I will just simply note that on a general basis, this layout is logical. It extends the existing streets and establishes an east-west connection with 4th Street. All streets connect with other streets, establishing the preferred grid system. With regard to right-of-way widths and roadway widths, the layout extends local streets and complies with the right-of-way requirements. As all the streets connect, reserve strips are not required in this case. The layout is also under 11.24010D. The alignment, everything aligns with the existing street system, and there's nothing staggered with regard to this layout. The future street extensions, that is not an issue in this case, as all the street connections are made. However, we are recommending that Hemlock be extended to the south property line and that the right-of-way be granted. The actual improvement will terminate at the 4th Street and Hemlock intersection. Now, we recognize that providing this additional right-of-way will require some adjustments to lots 41 through potentially 56, maybe a foot or so per lot. However, there's sufficient land available to go through this adjustment, and after examining this, none of the lots will be below the minimum lot size, width, or depth requirements. Finally, the intersection angles comply with our code requirements. Basically, we're looking at right angle streets here where practicable. Existing street connections are definitely provided. In the case of half streets, there will be a 3/4 street along Hemlock, and there will not be a separate half street required. There are no cul-de-sacs. All the street names follow the existing pattern. There are no grades to speak of that require improvements to the street. And for some reason, we have a street adjacent to the railroad right-of-way requirement, which does not apply here. And also, the layout does not include any marginal access streets that you would usually see with collectors or arterials. The applicant did not request modification to the right-of-way requirements. And finally, as a requirement, if approved, all street improvements must comply with adopted public works and street standards. And again, this can be determined through the engineering review process. Based on the information submitted by the applicant, also comments submitted by our city engineer in coordination with the Public Works Director, it is staff's recommendation that the Planning Commission approve this application subject to the conditions noted in the staff report. And with that, I will conclude my staff report and be happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Let's see. Are there any questions that any of the Planning Commission members have for Walt about the staff report?
Walt, I was curious about the improvements to the water system that would be a net benefit to the city. Would you elaborate?
I believe our city engineer is here. Sharon, correct? I think John is.
Yes,
I'm
John.
online here.
There's
Okay,
John.
John.
I would like John to answer that. I could give you an overview, but John can provide, I think, a lot more technical information if that's acceptable, Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Okay.
Good evening, John Christensen. I'm with AKS Engineering. I'm the contract engineer of record for the city. So with respect to the comment about the net benefit to the city with respect to water, the applicant includes an offsite water system improvement connecting a larger diameter water line to the north at the school. This is it's close proximity to what was presented in the master plan. And the master plan's goal is to improve fire flows throughout the community. And that's what this project provides. So you'll have better fire flows in the south end of town as a result of this project.
So the existing, from that, I guess, a larger pipe, I'm just curious what that diameter is, has been brought to the north of town, right? Correct?
Yeah, so there several phases have occurred. There was a large diameter pipe brought from the reservoirs outside of town into town in the northwest corner of town. And that was an 18-inch pipe. And then a 12-inch line was extended from there down Olive Street, across Azalea, through the high school property, and currently terminates at the intersection of Juniper and Highway 240. So we have a 12-inch diameter line extending through that much of town as it is today. And the intent of this project is to continue that south with an 8-inch line to improve fire flows throughout the community.
So the south side of 240 will all receive benefit from that?
Correct.
Now, I was also wondering about the analysis of the ability of our reservoirs to sustain growth, and particularly this, is it 57 houses?
Correct, 57 houses.
Are you the right person to talk to us about how much headroom we have and how much of this will take up?
Your question is with respect to reservoirs?
To water, having sufficient water when it's hot and no rain.
Mm-hmm. So obviously in the last summer, the city encountered a drought and water restrictions. And that was driven due to limited availability of water at Turner Creek. What we've presented in our report is that this development, while yes, it does add water users to the city system, it adds a small percentage considering the total volume used. It's roughly 5% of the city's water would be water use throughout the city is anticipated to be increased by approximately 5% by adding this development.
Thank you.
Are there any other commissioners that have questions?
Well,
I have,
What?
Sort of in regards to the water use. Last summer, did we have an additional 5% available?
No,
Okay. So had this development been in last year, would we have run out of water?
yes.
Understood.
so I thank you, Shay, for putting a finer point on that. Maybe I'd like to go to, as a planning commission, what's the criteria, Walt, where we can perpetrate our feelings about the sufficient water for the town?
Actually, you have, okay, first of all, you're looking at this as a solo project. And so I think that's just important to know. You're looking at in terms of what is the impact to the existing system based on this one project. And you have the engineer's report as well as comments. There is a provision under, let me just get to that one section. Under section 1108-040C, says adequate public facilities shall be available. And this is on page 8, top of page 8, shall be available to serve the existing and newly created lots. And so I guess in sort of a roundabout way to answer your question, if you find that that is not the case, then you can make a decision that this fails to meet that decision criteria.
Would you point me toward that? I'm on page 8 again. What was the?
Okay, very top of page 8, section 11.0.040C.
It's number G in the list
Yeah, gee, thank you. Thank you.
on page 8 of the staff report by Walt
Staff
Wendelowski.
Yeah.
Great. Instead of the page numbers on my phone, I'm looking at the page numbers on the pages. So yes, got it.
Okay. Yes, item G.
So there it is. Adequate public facilities shall be available to serve the existing and newly created lots. Now, you said something interesting about how we're looking at this as a one-off. What were you alluding to there as far as the future? Is that what you were alluding to, that more developments will be coming? We should be thinking about this in broader terms?
No, I'm just saying is that you cannot base land use decisions on what you think may or may not occur in the future for land development. You need to look at each case independently and whether or not this particular project complies with the requirements in the code.
Okay, thank you. So I guess public comment is important on that. That is it's a big issue in town. I think if we weren't on Zoom, we had public meetings, there might be more people. Perhaps there are people here that are just waiting to speak. But in the past years, it's been a big issue of concern. So I think we need to really talk about it and air it and get our heads around it, Carol and Sam and Shay. So I'm going to stop talking and hopefully somebody else can round it.
May I make a suggestion? This is going to be part of your deliberations, or I should also say additional questions as the hearing moves on. I would at least suggest you provide an opportunity for the applicant to address that as well, and also the public, and that way you can kind of weigh things to make your decision.
Thanks, Walt. That's great advice.
Good advice, Walt.
I was curious how we arrived at $100,000 for the project. That's such a round number for 57 houses. How does that work?
I'm not sure.
I'm not following that question.
One of the points is the cost of the project is $100,000, or was it $1 million? Which
That was a specific project related to a log jam. So that was part of the engineering report. That was an estimate on that particular project.
a log jam. What does that mean?
Well, we're kind of jumping the gun, aren't we, getting into the engineer's report now? Am I wrong or?
Oh, the staff report did include the engineer material. This is a good point to ask questions of staff. This is effectively our report.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other commissioners that would like to speak at this time regarding the staff report? No questions, hearing none. Sharon, have we received correspondence?
We have received public comment. Is that what we're referring to here, Walt? Is the public comment we received, or what does correspondence refer to?
We did receive correspondence after the staff report was completed. I would assume that was passed out to the planning commission. And that is part of the record. So that is considered testimony, if you will. And so the council, excuse me, the commission will need to review that material and also weigh that in their decision. Of what I have is a letter from Jenny Morrison, I believe, on 2nd Street. And also there was a petition submitted with a number of signatures with regard to this application. Those are the items that I've received.
Okay, so I do have that public comment. I can put it on the screen if that's what you're referring to.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
want to go through one by one?
Well, since they weren't included in our packets, I think that it's important for the commissioners to see what public comments there were. If
Okay.
it's hard to read on my screen, if someone would like to read them, could you read them, Sharon, or is that appropriate?
Sure. Yes, I can.
If you could go ahead and read them and who they're from so that we all can be aware of them.
Okay. This is from Jenny Morrison. It says it's in regards to the subdivision application. I am writing to voice my concerns about the application by Steve Ryman for development of a 57 lot subdivision on the property on the south side of East 3rd Street between South Hemlock and South Cedar. Per ordinance 4671 2002, there must be adequate public facilities to serve existing and newly created lots. The severe water restrictions we face this summer demonstrate how our city does not have adequate water supplies to meet the needs of our existing community. With drought and continued climate changes forecast for years to come, the addition of 57 homes is not in the best interest of our city and is irresponsible. Additionally, I would like to point out the already overcrowded school facilities in the YC school district. 57 additional families on top of the number anticipated with the new developments in Carlton and Yamhill underway would add too much stress to district staff and facilities. Thank you for allowing this perspective and opinion. Kind regards, Jenny Morrison.
Thank you, Sharon.
Do you want me to continue with the next one, or do you want to talk about that one?
Well, I don't know. It's not just I would just as soon go ahead and hear them all unless any planning commission members want to focus on them one by one.
Okay, does that work for everybody else in the planning commission?
Fine with me.
Yes.
Okay.
That's great.
The next one is, this is from Craig and Margaret Reinhold. They are on 4th Street. This is in regards to approval of tax lot 2200 to be developed for 57 lot single family subdivision, file number SDV 2101. Resident response to the very short public notice of the meeting during the Christmas holiday season. Was this done on purpose to keep town resident comments to a minimum? Did you want to address that, Walt, and address the time clock that we have from when the applicant moved from having their application on hold back to going forward?
Yes, by state law, we are required to, sure I'm working here. Yeah, by state law, we have to process an application once it's deemed complete within 120 days of that moment. And that includes the hearing before the planning commission, as well as any appeal to the city council. The applicant submitted this, I want to say back in August, but requested additional time to review engineering matters. And at that juncture, stayed the clock or told the clock. Once they agreed that they were ready to proceed, the clock sort of started. So this is, I understand the concern, but we're also under a legal constraint by state law and also within our development code that we need to move on these applications. And unfortunately, sometimes it happens near Christmas.
Okay. In regards to the public notice, just for the record, I mailed out in a 300-foot radius from the proposed development, posted at the post office, the notice of the public hearing, and at City Hall, and posted on the city's website the evening of November 29th. So I guess we can say November 30th. The public notice was also published in the News Register on December 3rd. So I believe what the resident is referring to is the agenda for the planning meeting, but the public notice was actually posted November 30th. I'll continue with the comment if there's no other things on that. We, Margaret and Craig Reinhold, Town of Yamhill residents, do not approve of the development of the proposed subdivision for the following reasons. City water availability is inadequate for current Yamhill residents. Based on the 2021 summer water restrictions for the town of Yamhill during June, July, and August, there is an insufficient summer water supply for current housing. There is a high probability that hotter and drier summers will continue over a long period of time. This will significantly stress Yamhill's current summer water supply. Also, there was the addition of the large subdivision being constructed behind the high school that wasn't drawing normal housing water volumes during summer restrictions, and if fully developed would have put an even higher strain on the Yamhill water supply. Current residents should not have to survive severe water restrictions imposed on them resulting from new homes. It would be irresponsible for the city to add more housing until proper and adequate summer water requirements are fully met for current and future Yamhill residents for at least the next decade. 57 new houses will add approximately 40 to 50 children to the Yamhill school system. Does the Yamhill Carlton School District have the resources for the additional children? This doesn't even include the children from the high school subdivision. We will not approve a tax increase if it comes up on a ballot. Adequate services for fire, police, sewer are all met. Thinly stretched resources are not acceptable. Fix the issues before any future Yamhill housing development. Craig and Margaret Reinhold on 4th Street. The next one is from the Yamhill Neighborhood Association. Dear Planning Commission, we are contacting you today as representative from Yamhill Neighborhood Association. Respectfully request to speak during the Planning Commission's Zoom meeting on December 15th regarding Title 11 land divisions with respect to new 57 home housing development and our previous water crisis this past year. Attached, please find our petition to request the city of Yamhill abides with the city's own charter, Title 11 land divisions with respect to the new 57 home development up for review and our previous water crisis this past summer. Kind regards, Robert Davis, founder. This is the email. Request to speak. This is the municipal code that he's referencing. Do you want me to go read through the municipal code or?
Well, I think it would be informative. I don't know
Okay.
the other members.
To the city of Yamhill and its city council members, we, the undersigned residents of the city of Yamhill respectfully requests the city of Yamhill abide by the city's own charter, Title 11 land divisions with respect to new housing development and our previous water crisis. 11.04.010 purpose. A, the purpose of this title is to establish standards and procedures for the partitioning of land in the city. These regulations are necessary to provide uniform procedures and standards for the dividing of land to assure adequate width and arrangements of streets, to coordinate proposed development with plans for utilities and other public facilities, to avoid undue congestion of population, to assure adequate sanitation and water supply, to provide for the protection, conservation, and proper use of land, and to protect in other ways the public health, safety, and welfare. And this is coming from the municipal code. I think it was stating up there that it was a charter, but this is the municipal code. 11.20.050 improvement requirements for subdivisions. F, sanitary sewer. Sanitary sewer shall be installed to serve the subdivision and to connect the subdivision to existing mains both on and off the property being subdivided. If the required sewer facilities will, without further sewer construction, directly serve property outside the subdivision, the Planning Commission may recommend to the City Council construction as an assessment project with such arrangement with the subdivider as is equitable to assure financing her share of the construction and to provide for appropriate reimbursements of cost above those directly attributable to the subdivision. The City Council may require that the subdivider construct sewage lines of a size in excess of that necessary to adequately service the development in question, where such facilities are or will be necessary to serve the entire area within which the development is located when the area is ultimately developed. The City Council may also require that the construction take place as an assessment project with such arrangement with the subdivider as is desirable to assure the subdivider share of the construction. And then G, water system. Water lines with valves and fire district approved fire hydrants serving the subdivision and connecting the subdivision to the city main shall be installed and operating prior to start of combustible construction. The design shall take into account provisions for extension beyond the subdivision to adequately grid the city system and to serve the area within which the development is located when the area is ultimately developed. However, the developer will be responsible for water main sizes necessary to meet minimum fire flow requirements per uniform fire code. The developer is not expected to pay for the extra pipe material cost of mains exceeding 8 inches in size. This is the petition. Do you want me to read off the names or is it good to just display it?
Let me give a count here. So there's two columns.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. So I count 28
Thank you.
have signed, and I believe they're all within the city. Comments are secure enough water supply for everyone, secure enough water for all, ditto, main, need, new, something about the subdivision, city should follow their own rules, follow the rules, no more water, something, no more, no water, no houses, keep our small town small. And then I have the next letter. It's from Daryl Smith on 3rd Street. Did you need anything else off of the petition? Or are you guys
No.
good? Okay.
You're good. I'm good.
Regarding application Steve Ryman file SDV 21-01, I'm requesting Planning Commission deny this application for the following reasons. The city first responsibility is to provide basic services to the residents of the city. Water, sewer, and fire protection are the most critical needs, and providing these are of first priority. The crisis of inadequate water supply greatly affected every resident last summer. The hauling and hand watering outside garden was difficult and largely unsuccessful as garden failed. It appeared by your published statement that we were nearly at the critical level requiring supplemental water shuttle last summer. With 80 to 90% leakage claimed in the water pipes, how could this even help as most of the water would be lost? Fire protection is greatly reduced by limited water and low flow at hydrants. This will affect insurance underwriters' ratings and our cost of fire insurance. The fire chief planned to use tender trucks. Sounds good, but in reality is mostly for woodlands fire suppression. Structure fires require water immediately. Tender trucks would not be able to charge lines sufficiently to provide delivery to residents. So that would put residents into a disaster situation. The records provided by city website for water usage do not seem accurate. For example, on July 29th, the intake gallons per minute was about 375, while the usage gallons per minute was about 425. You can't have more coming out of a pipe than is coming in. If this water usage is the sum total of all meters, then there's a huge discrepancy because of the 80% water loss between intake and delivery. Finally, the total amount of water allowed on all permits issued to the city of Yamhill from the state of Oregon is limited not only to total yearly usage, but to daily withdrawal also. It is so critical that total estimated usage versus maximum water available estimates be done. Yamhill needs adequate water and delivery before approval of large-scale development. And that is from Daryl Smith. The next one is from Patty Perrin. She would like, let's see. Is Mr. Ryman aware of the lack of water and restrictions we dealt with this year and potentially will deal with yearly? Will this information be provided to the broker or real estate agent for the subdivision to allow potential buyers to make an informed decision? I let her know. Mr. Ryman is aware of the water issues the city experienced over the summer. The broker real estate agent is fully aware of the situation as well. She wanted the information to be provided to potential buyers. I believe that is it for what I received for public comment.
Thank you, Sharon, for that
Uh-huh.
task of reading all of those, but it was good to hear.
Yeah, and I'm sorry that that didn't get out to you. A lot of it I just received like yesterday, some of it even this morning.
Okay, it's just, yeah. But it's good to know. Okay. Any questions from the planning commission members about this, or should we move on to the applicant's presentation? I think that's a good idea because we'll have time to talk about later.
Did you need to open it up to anyone participating in the meeting that wanted to provide a comment via Zoom?
Well, it says the applicant's presentation is next and then testimony in favor of the applicant and testimony against. Is this the time for public comment? Sharon?
No, this is the time, unless the planning commission has any more questions of staff, this is the time to have the applicant proceed with their presentation.
That was my understanding.
Yes, and then after that, then you have proponents and opponents.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you all.
Thank you. That was my understanding. So this time I'll open it up for the applicant's presentation.
Hi there, my name is Jake Lucy. I'm actually going to be the developer of the project should it be approved. First, want to just say thanks for taking a moment to review the application and consider the task at hand here. Been fond of the Yamhill County area for a number of years, actually attended Linfield now University myself. Have been a part of other projects within the area as well, and just really see the benefit in what the area has to provide to people. We think that this is really a great opportunity to bring not only quality housing, but a thought out development as well into the area, and hopefully also help increase home values of others that live there and share in the resources that the community provides. It's a fantastic area, and it's a desirable spot for a lot of people, as I'm sure all of the residents are finding out based on the influx of people moving into the area. To address, the not so much elephant of the room regarding the water supply. We know it was an issue this summer. We know there's some constraints, but we've also done some research too to be able to hopefully proceed forward. And also worked with the city engineers and staff to make sure that this isn't something that will be a further constraint upon the city. As far as we understand, there are possibilities for improving these systems. It's not so much that the water's not there, it's getting it to the residents. And what this development will hopefully provide is the ability to provide extra funding and revenue to make these improvements and ensure that this doesn't become a persistent problem when we have hot summers again. Not only does it provide the revenue for improving city utilities or systems, but it also will help bring patronage and additional revenues to the businesses around. The money brought in will be able to hopefully be used, if it's so deemed possible, to the city staff to be able to make some of the upgrades. It also, one of the things I heard from one of the letters was a concern about additional levies or taxes. Well, bringing in additional households and families, this allows so people's utility costs and other taxes aren't necessarily raised to increase the burden upon the current citizens. This allows that to be spread throughout, and it also allows us as the developers to help pay for some of those additional funds needed. So we are also knowing that there are some projects that are possibly could be in the works or part of the CIP. We also understand that you might need some of this money up front instead of waiting until homes are being built. And if that means that we need to provide some money up front in the form of some SDC credits towards the improvement of some of these systems, we're more than happy to entertain that option as well. And that being said, once again, I really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen. And I'm going to turn it over to our engineer from HBH, Andre Chernishoff.
Thank you, Jake. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right, wonderful. Well, want to say thank you for the Planning Commission for hearing our presentation and for Walt's staff report. We fully support his recommendation for approval. And with that, I'd like to start the presentation that we have here. Sharon, are you able to advance to the next slide, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
This is our project team, applicant owners, Steve Ryman, developer Jake Lucy you just heard from, and I'm the civil engineer with HBH Consulting Engineers. I've got Mike Henry here with us today. We also have legal counsel Mark Hoyt, and as well as our traffic engineer, Todd Mobley. Next slide, please. To give you an overview, as Walt had mentioned, this development is located on the south side of East 3rd Street between South Hemlock and South Cedar Street. It's roughly 12.7 acres. It's currently vacant. It is zoned a single-family residential, and the proposal is to for 57 lots, single-family subdivision. Next slide. In terms of the schedule, this is fairly approximate. The hope is that the subdivision is approved and road and utility construction could begin sometime next summer, with home construction beginning at the end of 2022, and first homes ready to be moved in sometime in 2023. With several of the, these many homes will probably be about 18 months or so before all of them are constructed. So we should anticipate homes slowly coming online, I should say, and it's really going to be closer to 2024, end of 2024 before it's fully built out. Next slide, please. This development will be improving existing city infrastructure. Some of that includes off-site sanitary sewer main improvements downstream of the site that's currently under capacity, as well as adding a new stormwater main down East 3rd Street between the development and the 40-inch culvert there in East 3rd Street next to Beulah Park. In addition to rebuilding the existing road, East 3rd Street, full width, which is approximately $450,000 value. The SDCs that this development will bring will be roughly $950,000 in total, which is quite the amount for the city to spend it on water improvements, sanitary sewer, park improvements, streets, and stormwater as the city deems is necessary. So in addition to the residents paying towards utility bills, water, sewer bills that the city will be able to collect over a long term, adds up to quite a bit of money for the city to improve the system. It's challenging to bring in large sums of money like this to help city residents and the infrastructure. Next slide, please. It is our understanding that historically, approximately 40% of the water produced by the city is used by city residents, and the other 60% is sold as a surplus to users outside of the city. City has the right to limit or not sell the surplus water to users outside the city in the event of a shortage of supply or emergency. As John had mentioned, this development will use less than 5% of the water produced by the city today. And finally, current city water facilities can serve 2 times the current inside city water usage, even after this development is constructed. Next slide, please. Estimated construction excise tax. Yamhill Carlton School District will be receiving roughly $114,000 a year, I believe. This is assuming a $1 a square foot. So there will be additional revenue to the Yamhill School District. This goes into additional property taxes that will be generated by this development, roughly $450,000 in total. Some additional details listed here. So the total property taxes from 57 lots equates to $258,000 and change a year. The amount of property taxes going directly to the Yamhill Carlton School District is again about $111,000 a year, which will help improve the facilities necessary for the additional children at school, as well as property taxes directly to the cities, about $60,000 a year. And finally, the property taxes that will be received by Yamhill Fire is about $23,000 a year. The utility user fees that the new property owners would be paying is roughly $150 a month. That ends up to about $1,800. $102,000 a year from utility user fees. And we had noticed conditions C1 and E3 currently are in conflict. Condition C1 requires the applicant to construct offsite improvements, whereas condition E3 requires the developer to enter into a development agreement with the city and pay a fee in lieu of for offsite improvements. We would propose the modified condition of approval as stated here, where the developer proposes that conditions be modified to allow the developer to elect between these two conditions, between, I guess, installing the offsite improvements or entering into a development agreement with the city that establishes and requires a payment of a fee in lieu of for the offsite improvements. And we're happy to receive any questions from the Planning Commission.
I'm opening it up for questions from anyone at this point of the Planning Commission members.
I believe our legal counsel, Mark Hoyt, is going to speak as well too.
Okay. Is that?
I wasn't sure if you wanted to address engineering questions before I made a few comments, or if you wanted to let's get through my comments and then circle back to questions, because both Jake, Andre, and I will be available to address any questions that come up at the conclusion of the presentation.
Does that sound okay to the rest of the commissioners?
Yeah,
That's
that's
great.
fine.
Okay. Okay. Go
All right.
ahead then.
Well, thank you. I'm Mark Hoyt of Sherman, Johnny, and Hoyt, 693 Chemeketa Street, Northeast Salem, Oregon, 97301. Thank you, members of the commission. Appreciate your time and appreciate your dedication to the city. I'll cut right to the chase. It is absolutely clear that there is a water shortage and issue with water supply in the city of Yamhill. It is very appropriate, and we respect the fact that the commissioners are asking a lot of questions about that issue. One of the criteria does require that there be adequate services available. It is appropriate that that is focused on. The developers here were aware of that as one of the public comments raised, and as a result of that have been working extensively with the city engineer, and we would invite comments and questions with the city engineer as well as our engineer as to the water supply issues, because the reality is that if there's not enough water, it doesn't make sense to build this subdivision. There's going to be a lot of investment in public infrastructure. There's going to be a lot of investment in the actual structures themselves. And if there's not adequate water to service those properties, they can't be sold. And so it's impractical for this project to go forward if there's not appropriate water. So the developer's interest, the city's interest, and the citizens' interests are all aligned to solve this problem. And one of the things that I want to emphasize is the slide you just saw is that this is not a situation where if this development is approved, houses are going to be up next week. The construction schedule here will involve, initial approval, goes through the design phase, Improvements begin in 2021 for public improvements, start being built and coming online until 2023. So homes are a long way off in this context. And that's important when you look at the city's water situation, because the way that development is currently structured in Oregon, the cities and municipalities look to development to provide the dollars necessary to make the improvements to improve their public services. And some of the reason that you saw the financial information that was reviewed by Andre is that that is a very real thing that this development will provide. And you heard Jake mention it, and I want to highlight it, that with an appropriate development agreement in place, that when we know the project can go forward in a timely manner, they're happy to prepay water SDCs. And if those water SDCs are prepaid, Jake, jump in if I'm wrong, it's about $400,000 that gets a check written to the city, that the city's engineer can then direct in what they believe to be the most appropriate way to help solve and mitigate the city's water issues. And that money is in addition to the water line that you heard discussed in response to Commissioner Moore's questions about the water supply. The oversized line that will provide that supply to this area is in addition to that $400,000, and that's a direct developer expense. And so when you start to accumulate those benefits, you start to see mitigation. And the reality is, this is a hard issue, because if people don't have water, it's scary, because without water, you don't have home. It's just a fundamental need. But that's one of the reasons that this project there's been so much interplay with the city's engineer to look at what are the true sources of the problem. Is it an exfiltration issue where water is escaping before it can be delivered? Is it a capacity issue for delivery? How can those problems be solved? And it's one of the reasons that the developers are looking at that concept of prepaying those SDCs so that the money's immediately available to the city, so the city can immediately apply those funds to solve its citizens' problems and issues. And that precedes construction of homes. So the water problem and the repair of the water problem and addressing that water problem can go forward long before a home comes out of the ground. That work can be proceeding as that water line is replaced. There can be concurrent statements. And so I think it's important to make sure the commissioners question the city engineer to their satisfaction. But the reports and the information that we've received through the communication that we have had is that with appropriate planning and with appropriate application of expense, this problem can be solved, and that these homes can be accommodated, and the city's citizens can be confident that they will not have any more severe water issues than they've already experienced, that this will not make the problem worse. In fact, as noted in the staff report, you heard, the expectation is that we'll actually make the problem better. And so there is a natural and normal reaction to the situation to say, hey, stop, we got to fix this and we have to know it's fixed. But the way that our state has structured itself is that communities look to development to help solve problems. And this development is here to lend that helping hand and try and solve that problem. This is just a subdivision request. It is not a complex land use application in that context. You saw that there are some very mechanical criteria that apply to it. Those criteria are, for the most part, I don't think there's any question that they're met. I think most of the conversation is focused on, and I think appropriately, the question of whether there's adequate public facilities. But in terms of the design, in terms of the lot size, in terms of the street extensions, all of those things are criteria that are satisfied. Those street improvements will not only provide benefit to this subdivision, but it provides infrastructure that will support the growth of the city into the future. So if Yamhill chooses to grow, and if Yamhill has the population that drives growth, there will be street and infrastructure in place that can be leveraged to support that. And it's all done in a consistent design that provides for orderly development of the area. So with that, I'll kind of begin to wind things up just a little bit, but a couple of things that we want to talk about. One, there's a condition that talks about all of the improvements being done consistent with the city engineer's December 8th, 2021 letter. The developer has worked with the city engineer, and you heard a lot of comments from the city planner, Mr. Wendolowski. that there's a lot of design issues still up in the air. And we would like to see that condition modified to indicate that the public improvements need to be done pursuant to the city engineer's December 8th, 2021 letter, as may be modified by the engineer, so that if design concepts come up that will be better serve the community than those set forth in those letter, that the city engineer has the ability and the authority to enforce those design concepts in lieu of what was discussed there. That gives the city engineer, the person probably in the best position to represent the city's interests and design where money should be invested to direct those funds. And so we'd ask to a modification of the condition in that portion. And that we saw the slide earlier that talked about modifying the conditions. The developer would like the option to either elect to pay a fee in lieu, which allows the city to proceed with the developer's money to make those offsite improvements, or to make those improvements themselves. And that again will be a decision that will be made in conjunction with the city engineer, so that the city engineer can do that. If the developer does proceed with those improvements on his own, the city engineer is going to review and supervise the design process and review and accept the construction itself. So the control remains within the power of the city. It's just a question of whether that's done under prevailing wage laws or not, and how that makes best sense to proceed. And those are issues that really, until the project is fully designed, won't be known. So we'd ask for the flexibility to do that. So in closing, you've heard from your citizens, and I've heard the commissioners appropriately express concerns about water supply. We share that concern. If there's not adequate water, this development doesn't go, it doesn't work. And that's why the developer's willing to invest and prepay those SDC charges to allow that work to go forward. And when that money's prepaid, the developer loses control of it. It goes into the city's hands, and the city can direct that as it best sees fit. And we believe that that's a significant contribution that this development makes, in addition to all of those that you saw in the slides, that will provide substantial long-term financial resources to the city to make sure that its infrastructure can be upgraded and improved. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I do want to note that Mr. Lucy is a local developer. He cares for the community. His partner, Steve Ryman, has been a longtime member of the community and done substantial developments in the area. Both of them are significantly connected and care about the community. This is not someone who is trying to come to an area to take advantage of a community. These are people who have grown up in and are invested in the community. And I think you see that in their offer to prepay SDC charges with an appropriate development agreement in place. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Is this the end of the presentations that we're going to hear for the?
I believe so, unless Andre or Jake have anything to add. I think that you have you've heard our pitch.
Andre, do you feel that we made our point as far as the amount of outside user water that is available for inside use in the city should an emergency arise again?
Yeah, as I had discussed in that slide, that currently the city's water usage that's being used is inside the city is about 40%, and the rest is being sold to outside users outside the city.
As excess water.
As excess surplus water, correct.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sharon, would you be opposed if we took a 5-minute bathroom break at this point? Would anybody be opposed to that? Just taking a brief break at this point?
I have no issue.
You have no issue? It's 20
Sure.
past. I mean, I know it's going to be a long meeting. You know, I'm not trying to prolong it, but I think I would request if we could just take a short pause here for a moment.
Okay.
Resume back at 20, 25, 26 past.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
It's 8:21
Yeah.
right now, so we'll rejoin at 8:26.
8:26, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you so much, Sharon. I appreciate that. I realize this is going to be a long meeting. I guess we can resume now. We've heard the testimony in favor of the application. Is that where we're at?
Yeah, and Madam Chair, before we move on, I just want to make sure that we don't know if there's going to be rebuttal or additional testimony, and we want to reserve both the opportunity for rebuttal as well as the opportunity to request the record be held open for some additional information at the end of the public hearing proceeding.
Absolutely, Mr. Hoyt, absolutely.
Thank you.
Is now a time for the commissioners to ask questions? Should we take testimony at this time, Sharon, against the application?
I would vote for testimony at this point.
Okay, that's fine with me.
Number 12 says testimony in favor of application.
Favor, yes, proponents.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, Walt.
That's okay.
Okay.
Sharon's got you going there. That's good.
Okay, that's okay. We're gonna stay on track here.
You will. You're doing great.
Thank you.
Doing great.
So now is the time for any testimony in favor of the application. Is there anyone to speak on that? Sharon, did you receive any correspondence in favor of?
I received the correspondence that I read. There is one person, Jenny Morrison, who has her hand raised as an attendee. Should I ask her to unmute and we can see if she's speaking in favor?
Yes, that would be good, Sharon.
Okay, I'm seeing that her hand just went down, so I'm assuming that, oh, wait, one more came back up. Okay, so her hand is back up. I will go ahead and allow her to talk and just let her know that we're taking testimony for favor.
Okay, and this is Mrs. Morrison?
This is Jenny Morrison.
Jenny Morrison, okay.
I am calling in not in favor.
Okay.
I'm against.
Okay, this is not the time. It will be in just a moment, but.
Yes, no, my hand was raised before the break.
Okay, okay.
So I'll leave her hand raised and I'm gonna go ahead and mute her.
Okay.
Was there anyone else in the audience that wanted to speak in favor of the applicant or application, excuse me? I'm not seeing any hands raised.
Okay, thank you, Sharon.
Uh-huh.
Now we'll move on to testimony against the application. And I'm going to rely on you. You see the hands and.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. You can unmute Jenny at this point.
Yes, I will unmute Jenny.
Hello again. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and I'd like to raise a couple of points.
Okay, Jenny, could you just give us, for the record, it would be required that you give your full name, address, and.
Yes.
Okay.
Jenny Morrison, and our address in town is 915 East 2nd Street. And then we also reside on Adcock Road 20051, Northwest Adcock Road, just out of the city limits. And that is one point that I'd like to make. And so it was brought up in the testimony that some of the water is sold outside of the community. Well, the water that is sold outside of the city limits is sold to the rural water districts. And so we are part of that on our Adcock Road residents and part of the Pleasant View Water District. And we rely on and purchase their 40 homes that are Yamhill addresses, Yamhill neighbors, Yamhill, people, citizens who depend on that water as well. And I know that there are, I don't know the total number, but there are many other with Yamhill addresses that purchase water from the city. So I just want to make sure that it's clear that this is not water just sold outside of the community to people who don't have an interest in what's going on. So that's my first point. And we were also on the severe water restrictions. So what happens with the city water happens to the broader community of taxpayers. And then we also, again, have property, in town on 2nd Street. And the other point I'd like to make, or question I'd like to ask, is brought up that, yes, the money's going to be paid up front to handle the investigation with what the city can do to solve the problems around the engineering, and the homes are, a long way off of being built. However, the water is still this, the source of our water is not going to change, or maybe it is, and that's what I'd like to hear. But as of now, the source of the water is Turner Creek, and that is the source that's running low. Yes, infrastructure could be improved. There could be, things made better to, maybe have less water wasted, but I don't see where the fresh sources of water are going to come from. And if the water, as it was stated at the beginning of the testimony, that lower than what was needed to meet the demand this past summer, that is a major concern that I have. I also have other concerns that are not related to, the approved, items. I brought up the school traffic flow, is another thing that I'm concerned about when you think about extra traffic and cars, going through the rest of the neighborhoods that don't have sidewalks built, where you have children coming and going to school. It's is this going to build sidewalks throughout the rest of the neighborhood that reaches the school? I don't believe that's the case. And so I just, again, feel that this whole project is not in the best interest of all of the citizens. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you.
Would you like to take the next person with their hand?
Yes. Yes, I would. If you could just, I'm sure there are several people who want to speak, so you could just keep us informed and move on.
It's a telephone number. Are you there?
Yep. Is it for 1704?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is Patty Perrin. My address is 215 North Maple Street. My mailing address is P.O. Box 674, Yamhill. So in the packet, and I'm the one who sent in the question in regards to the real estate agent or broker providing this water issue to the buyers. So in the packet, in the overview, it describes, for the water use, that they're assuming, or it's under the assumption, that the water for the outside districts could be either restricted or stopped. And I specifically asked that of the mayor not too terribly long ago, actually. And she stated no, that would not be done. So this so-called 60% extra water that the city has access to, that doesn't even exist with this. So if in the event these additional 57 homes were built, we would be at a zero capacity within the city for any water. And I would actually like to know who indicated that this could potentially happen. And then the other, just a comment that I have is, and I've lived in this town for 20 years now, and there have been multiple subdivisions built during the period of time that we've been here. And with all the SDC charges that have been, received from all these new homes that are built, And our water issue has existed for years. There has been absolutely nothing done to either get us another water source or upgrade our system, any of that. So with all the hoopla that the attorney, the developer, Mr. Reinman hasn't said anything, but that's just talk, in my opinion. It's air coming out of somebody's mouth, because it will not change the fact that Turner Creek is going to supply this entire town with no water restriction. It's not going to happen. So that's my comment.
Patty.
Okay, I will go on with the next person.
Well,
Telephone number ending with a 21.
Yes, this is Rocky Lossley, 2nd Street. And my comments include, everything is about water. Water is the reason why we are having this conversation. The basic plan for the subdivision looks and sounds, it looks like it's well attended. However, because of the water circumstance, and so we have an engineer's report, we have last summer's experience with water shortage, and we have a document that was accomplished in 2018 that is the city water system master plan. And there are five components to the plan, which include the raw water supply, which is a finite amount of water. And it appears as though there's not a lot that can be done about this finite amount of water. If there is water loss, there may be methods to capture it. I don't know that any ideas or suggestions have been submitted at this time, but that is something that can be considered. But we know that our raw water supply is deficient. Another component is treatment. This area has deficiencies. We're only able to treat X amount of water, and I think we demonstrated at this critical 2021 issue of a water short supply that, as I understand it, the water treatment plant was running many hours to try to keep up, and there was only a limited amount of water available to go to the treatment plant. Another issue that we have is from the treatment plant to the reservoir is an 8-inch pipe with an 18-inch pipe that runs from the reservoir into the city. There's, each of these components, the fix represents a considerable amount of money. Storage, it was identified in this study, this evaluation, that 1.6 million gallons should be added to our storage capability. That represents a considerable expenditure. Distribution. In distribution, we have generally reasonable gallons per minute available, although we do have some areas that are insufficient, and that is being addressed by this particular subdivision proposal, which is good. However, if we can't get the water from its source through the treatment plant to the reservoirs and then into the city, we're not able to apply the water in the way that is needed. So there's another deficiency. Fire flow, it is identified that there is some deficiency in some areas. We are capable of, as I said, we are capable of delivering a reasonable gallon per minute. And we have reasonable pressure, PSI, but we have serious infrastructure deficiencies. If our owner and developer were able to even promise $2 million that the city could work with, that would not be sufficient to take care of what our deficiencies are. Not that it might be possible at this time to take care of all of them at one time. So we're going to have to be much more visionary, inventive, and do more research to determine what can we do financially to get to a place where we can accommodate, maybe in stages, $5 million expenditure, totaling each of these 5 conditioned areas that might amount to $50 million or perhaps more, knowing that even if we attempted to begin today, we would not be able to even start a project for some period of time, nor would that project totally be complete for several years. So this is truly a dilemma, and it would appear that we just simply need to do more homework and determine very practical and useful increments to change this circumstance into something that's a lot more positive than it looks like today.
Rocky, thank you for your comments. I appreciate your doing your homework on this. Thank you.
Rocky, did you state your address?
344.
Is that sufficient for the record, 344, Carol?
I think he said, I didn't hear him say 344. Well, he did say 2nd Street before, so I'm not sure.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I did hear him say 2nd Street, but not a number.
Okay.
And do you need their mailing address for a specific reason, or is that something that's required, or?
I didn't ask for the mailing address.
Okay, I heard someone give it before and I didn't think that was a prerequisite. Okay, is there another caller?
Yes, just 1 second.
Okay.
Okay. I've asked Sherry Wilson to unmute.
Yeah.
There
Thank
you
you.
go.
Hi, this is Sherry Wilson. I live at 710 East Main Street in Yamhill. And my first thought is we were talking about the city going to receive $400,000 prior to any building going on. And I just want to address the fact that $400,000 is nothing when you're talking about the need that we need for an updated water system. All that's going to do is pay for basically the lines that are going to be put in for that development. Recently, last week, I believe, was the Water Commission meeting, and their idea for 2022 in June is to make a log jam on Turner Creek to back up water. And I'm thinking, that's so archaic. It's like something you do in the 1800s. And that's how desperate we are to have more water. And I mean, the cost of that alone is $100,000. So don't try to tell me that $400,000 is really going to make some big, deep pockets for the city, because it's not. It'll be gone in a minute. On talking about that, to realize how much money that is. Our new fire department sign was either $32,000 or $34,000 for the fire department sign. So I don't want to try to be snowed that we're going to have all this money, because we won't. Also, the developer notes that it's only going to be, the new development will only take up 5% of the existing water that's being used. Well, we're going to talk about the city's existing water and the people within the city limits. We only used basically 25% total of the 530 hookups within the city. The other 75% was rationed out to the 10 water districts outside of the city and the 162 hookups that are on there. So the city will have, if we're in another position like we were this summer for down the road, the actual city council is going to have to make some really hard decisions of who's going to get water. And it is, I don't want to turn anybody's water off, but I definitely don't want to add to the strain of it by adding another 57 houses. So, and I would like the city to follow, if this does go through, God forbid, that the city needs to make sure they follow through with what the builders' plans are and what they're going to do for the city, because I'm still not seeing any stop signs or speed bumps on Elm Street where that was supposed to have happened. So now that I'm off my soapbox, but please don't allow this to go through until we have the infrastructure needed for it. Let's get the cart behind the horse instead of the other way around. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Anyone else, Sharon?
Yes, we have one more, says Jeff.
Am I hearing from Jeff?
I'm clicking on allow to talk and nothing is happening. Okay, let me try one more. I've got Chris. Okay, there's Chris. He just came online. And I will, okay, now he's unmuted. Go ahead, Chris.
Actually, it's Steve and Chris Featherston. Chris would be my wife. And we live at 320 South Elm.
Okay.
And I'm not naive. I don't believe that this subdivision won't go through eventually. So, and I didn't grow up here. I'm not against growth in the community, but I agree with what the other people had to say, that you have to have infrastructure before that growth. And a couple of things that the attorney and that the engineer from the people who want to build this subdivision said. The fact, I wouldn't care if the people don't live in Yamhill, because these are the people who trucked in water for our kids to be able to play football, and for the farmers who brought in water so that we had stuff to drink and to water our stuff, gardens and yards. And so what you were talking about here is a little offensive in a way. It's saying, we've given our word that we'll give you water. Oh, but don't worry about those people. You can cut them off and give it to us who haven't been here. That's a little, I didn't grow up here, and that's just a really dishonorable way to think, in my opinion. So I just think those are our family members outside of town. Those are our friends, our kids' friends, the people who go to school here, the people who come here for derby days and those types of events. And, those are the people who, like Jim Phillips, who have a house outside of town, who's done a lot for this community. So I think it's a pretty low thing to think, well, we'll just shut those people's water off because they're not in town anyway. And I really didn't appreciate those people putting it kind of that way. And I hope they would rethink that. And then I agree with Mr. Lawson that, or Losley, excuse me, that you've got to have, we've got to figure out what it's going to take to fix the water problem, and then go from there. We can't just go, oh, there's $400,000. We'll just take that and run, because that's a pittance of what it's going to take to fix this issue. I mean, 10 years ago, I was up at the reservoir with the former police chief, and he was telling me that at that point that they needed to dredge that reservoir and nothing's been done on it. So how much silt and gunk has been built up in there now? And I think at that time they had 17 feet of reservoir distance. I would bet it's shallower than that at this point. So I'm not for proceeding ahead right now. If they can, if the city can make this work with what we have, then that I would be all for it. But I don't believe you can. And there's no reason to make everybody around here suffer just to put in some homes that really the numbers that the engineer read off they look nice, but when you really look at them, they're pennies on the dollar of what the city runs and needs to fix its issues. So that being said, my wife had a couple things to say since we're on together, and I'll let her speak.
Well, I don't really think I have anything else to add. Talked about like how awful our water system is, and I just think back to it has improved over the generations, because I remember the Army National Guard bringing in trucks, because anytime that the power would go off in Yamhill, then our water treatment plant would shut off because nobody had the generators hooked up correctly, and then we'd have to be on boiling water restrictions, and the National Guard would come in with water, and you could go down and get a couple of milk jugs of water. That was your clean water you could use for stuff in the house. But we never actually had a volume problem in the 42 years that I've been here until this last year. And we also dealt with the new subdivision was halfway put in at that point, and then we're all only flushing when we poop, and then waiting a couple of times when you pee. And yet you go over to the new subdivision and they have their half empty or their empty houses that their water sprinkler systems are running. So, I mean, there was a lot of stuff that happened this last year where there was waste, right? And we all can say that, but we have to have stuff in place before we build and we invite 57 new families in, because we want it to be a good environment for them. It's a great place to live, and we want it to be a positive experience for everybody. And we don't want resentment from the community to the new people moving in either. So I think that's where I'm at. I think that's a lot of the feeling from the community of growth, but it has to have everything in place properly to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, next person is Robert Davis.
We both said good things.
Hey.
Hi, Madam Chairperson. Thank you for hearing me today, and the council members as well. I represent Yamhill Neighborhood Association. I'm the founder. I live at 212 North Maple Street here in Yamhill for over 25 years. With that said, I had about a 30-minute presentation, which I'm going to forego because of the length of this meeting and the fact that we are basically beating a dead horse here, which is the water issue. But I do have a couple of comments I would like to make in regards to my submission, my purpose for being here, and the 28 signatures that we got, our members got in 4 hours time, with the concerns of the Title 11 division not being followed by the city. Basically, the only area in which should have been read is to assure adequate, and this is under 11.04.010 purpose. And it says to assure adequate sanitation and water supply to provide for the protection, conservation, and proper use of land, and to protect in other ways the public health, safety, and welfare. So with that said, in the bottom of the purpose of the land use division, all I can say is $950,000 from a builder will not mitigate our single source of water from Turner Creek, lack of water that's due to be here next summer. But if the builder really wants to help the city, he could have 4 or 6 500-gallon water storage tanks put in and have our impound yard dredged out to support 4 million gallons. Then probably Turner Creek might get us by for another 3 or 4 month outage of water crisis like we went through this summer. Now, I could speak on Walt's report and read the points of the document and comment about the errors and omissions, but I'm going to skip that. I could talk about AKS's engineering report and read the points of the document out loud and comment on the document's errors and omissions in that report. But really, what this all boils down to is, in YNA's opinion and our membership, as YNA and all its members, we are asking the Planning Commission to place the 57 home development on hold until more research and facts can be addressed and resolved. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert, for your comments. Sharon, is there anyone else?
I am not seeing any other hands. If at this time you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. I'm not seeing anything. Okay, I'm not seeing any more hands.
Okay, Sharon, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. At this time, we will close the testimony against the presentation. And now is the time for any neutral testimony. Hearing none, we can move on to the rebuttal. In favor testimony, no new evidence or testimony. Is there a rebuttal? In favor.
Madam Chair, yes, we'd like just a few quick comments that we'd like to make, and then we'd also we started talking about water, and I think we're going to finish talking about water, and so I'll talk about water. The city holds a water right to Turner Creek. If that water right is employed in full, then there is ample water to supply the city of Yamhill's needs. My understanding is that currently only about 20% of the water passing the intake is captured, which means that there's a substantial amount of additional water that can be captured from the creek. And there were some comments that the discussion of the fact that some of the water was sold outside the city was a suggestion somehow that water be cut off from people. That is not at all what anyone was suggesting. And if that was what was taken away, we didn't speak clearly or well on that subject. The issue there is it's a comment on the amount of water that is available, and that this is a solvable problem based on the capacity and the amount of water that is there. There were discussions about waste, and I think there was a lot of waste there, and I think that the Public Works Director has made some recent comments about that, and we'd invite some discussion with him because we think that would be productive for the Planning Commission to have the insights from him as to the water. There were also some discussions that the 400,000 was related to the water line installed for this project. That is not the case, and we hope we made that clear. There would be water lines that are built by the developer, but then there would be SDC charges that would be paid in addition to that construction, and that amount would be available. And it's our understanding from talking to the city engineer that there are ample options to substantially improve the city water supply so that the limited impact of these homes is not going to make a difference. And having heard the testimony, having heard the discussion, we believe that probably the best thing to do at this stage is to hold the record open and have us have 2 weeks where we can come in and present more detailed information regarding the water. There's legitimate concerns, very real concerns that people should be raising in their community. We hear the commission expressing those concerns. We want to be able to make sure that everybody has the best available facts from the best available sources for the commission to consider in making a decision. And so we'd ask that the record be held open so that we can address the issues related to water and have the commission have the best available information on which to base a decision on this project. And unless there's anything that Andre or Jake would like to add, that would be the extent of our rebuttal at this point, but we do think it might benefit both the community as well as our ability to address questions of the commission if the commission was to ask questions of the city engineer, the planning director regarding the water situation and their understanding of the situation so that we can focus our comments in the places that might be most helpful to the commission.
Okay, so, okay. Sharon, is it now time to go to rebuttal against, or is the commission allowed to ask questions of the applicant at this time?
I think we did. Okay, so we did rebuttals in favor. Now we're at rebuttal of against testimony.
Okay.
Actually, once the opponents have spoken, the applicant then has the opportunity for rebuttal. It doesn't go back and forth. The applicant has to prove their case. So I hate to use a baseball term, but they get the last time at bat,
Okay.
so to speak. However, they did request the record to be left open.
Understanding that, Walt, I think, does that mean the commission is not, the planning commission members at this time are not allowed to speak to?
I think you
the
can ask
applicant because it's
questions.
okay.
I think I'm a little nervous about that. And the reason is that there were opportunities elsewhere. And also they're going to be coming up with some additional information. My suggestion is, first of all, this hearing will definitely be continued to January 19th. But before I go on, I just want to make sure I provide the 120-day status. Okay, this was after a number of delays requested by the applicant, and we have a series of emails supporting that. This is finally declared complete on November 8th of this year. We are only 37 days into the process. So I just want to assure you that continuing this hearing, which you're effectively doing to make a decision, will only bring you 72 days into the 120-day, which gives sufficient time for an appeal to the city council if that occurs. The applicant requested the record be held open to December 29th. And I'm probably going to ask a little bit of a assist here from Mr. Hoyt, is that ORS 197 763 also talks about people can also make a request to provide additional information after the applicant has submitted their request. Normally it's formally done in writing. I recommend that the planning commission also allow the opponents to this case up to January 12th to submit their comments as well. And I believe when we return on the 19th, all that material would be handed to the planning commission if you will, in the staff report, along with all the supporting documentation. And at that juncture, and again, Mr. Hoyt, I'm looking for a little guidance here. This does get a little murky with state law. I believe all the information would be provided to the Planning Commission. And as the opponents had time to submit additional material, you would be given an opportunity for a rebuttal at the January 19th hearing. Am I on the right track here, sir?
Absolutely. The rebuttal is not allowed to present new evidence, but only to respond to evidence submitted by the applicants in response.
Okay.
Excuse me, by the opponents in response to the additional information. So
right. So just understand, the applicant will submit additional information. The opponents can submit their information, and that's it. And then when it gets to the January 19th hearing, the applicant can rebut whatever information was submitted, but may not present new testimony. At that juncture, then the testimony is closed and the Planning Commission goes to deliberations. Does that sound correct? I think it always gets a little squirrely when someone does and then there's the follow-up. You have to, by state law, allow the applicant to have at least 7 days to submit new material.
Understood.
Yeah, and that's going to put you to the January 19th hearing anyway.
Okay, and Walt, in all due respects, I want you to know, and everyone else to know, that this is my last Planning Commission meeting as chair of the Planning Commission. 3 new members are coming on board. They did not vote me in again, so this is my last meeting. I would like the opportunity to hear, as the chair, all of the Planning Commission members' concerns at this time, if that allowed. I realize that the applicant has requested to bring this back to the Planning Commission. I will not be a part of that process, unfortunately. So I would like to have the commissioners be able to address some of the questions that were brought up this evening, or the questions and concerns that they have as I sit here in my last meeting, if that's okay with you.
I think that's a reasonable request to make sure it gets on the table. That's probably, yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. So at this point, after hearing all the testimony from the engineers and the builder, and I'd like to hear from the Planning Commission members, hear their opinions about what they heard, what their assessment is. I realize that this is going to come back to the table in January, but where these questions are fresh in everybody's mind at this time, I personally would like to hear from the Planning Commission members on what has been discussed tonight. If anybody would like to speak.
Actually, I would.
Okay, Shay.
Jenny Morrison was one of the people that called in. She was an outside user. One of her concerns, other than water, was the school district. And that seems to have been touched on just a little bit here and there, but has not been gone in any sort of detail. And definitely I would like to find out if Mr. Hoyt or any of the people involved with the subdivision, has there been a report done or some information gathered from the school district to support the additional children that we would be elementary school, from what I understand, is now kindergarten through 3rd grade, kindergarten through 6th grade just a few years ago, and they're unable to continue offering classes to the 6th graders, 5th graders, and 4th graders who are now Yam Hill.
I could respond to that.
Great.
There are a number of different type of facilities that are provided. Sewer and water and storm and streets are necessary before you can move into the house. That's not the case with schools. Schools come after the fact. So we have plans for sewer and water systems, and that hopefully ties everything together. But I think it would be a real stretch, and I've kind of brought this up a few times in other communities. I don't think people would support building empty schools waiting for the population to rise up to their use.
Right.
So the facilities that are important for public health and safety come first. Things that support those commercial, residential, industrial developments follow. And that's where the school also has an obligation, the district has an obligation to ensure that they are the communities they serve.
Understood. Thank you for that, Walt. I just wanted to make sure that Miss Morrison represented there.
Also, please understand, I'm saying that not to diminish or minimize her concerns. This is a very common concern, and you have overcrowding, then the building is built. I'm not trying to minimize, I'm just saying the way it works, you get the sewer and water first, and then the schools come later. Then the city makes more decisions on police, et cetera.
Understood.
Are there any other commissioners that would like to speak to what issues were brought up this evening? Ken, do you have any questions or comments?
Oh, yeah, I do. I wish I knew more about the water system. I wish I knew more about the history and the need. But from what I've gleaned tonight and in the past, seems like there's a few problems, and that is the storage capacity. If in fact we are only diverting 20% of Turner Creek, it's probably because we don't have a place to put it when we've got it. So what is the cost of a $4 million, 4 million gallon reservoir? Somebody said they needed to add another 1.6 million gallons. And then somebody else has talked about a large percentage of leakage. What would it cost to reduce that leakage? So if maybe that's not the developer's job to do that homework, but if they want to answer those questions for me, they could make it their homework. And also, coming with those numbers and where you got them, present how you can be a part of the solution to that. And I have another question. So I think it's to the developer's advantage that they hear from the commissioners tonight, because they have to get our votes. And if they they're flat-footed at the next meeting, not answering our questions, then we get delayed further. We don't want that. So I think now's the time. Well, I wanted to ask you, what criteria would indicate to you that to not recommend, or recommending that the utilities were not sufficient? At what point would you say, hey, wait, based on this, we don't have enough water? When would that happen for you?
That is a very tough one to respond to. My expertise is not in engineering. And frankly, I do rely on the, regardless which community I'm working in, I do rely on the local city engineer to provide that context. Now, I think there was an interesting question at the beginning saying if these 57 homes were up and running last summer, would we have had a real serious problem? I think that was a very interesting way of framing the question. At this juncture, I have a report that says that while things aren't perfect, things can be addressed to the satisfaction of the city requirements. I think generally what you're going to need is like someone who comes up with a engineering analysis that says, no, it will not work out. And that's often a very high hurdle to jump.
Maybe I could direct the same question to John. Does he have some insight there?
Yeah, so in my report that I submitted, my response was not that the water utility was adequate. What I explained was that the development, the city is limited on water, and you're fed by a surface water supply. There are going to be years when it's adequate, and there are going to be other years when it's not. It's just a matter of how much water is retained in the aquifer throughout the winter. It's going to seasonally change. And my point in my report was to identify, what, how, or if this would exacerbate the city's current water shortage. That was really my point in my report. So, does the city have adequate water? Yes, your water right is adequate. Yes, your treatment plant has the capacity to deliver and produce water to meet the need of this development. Whether or not the creek physically has enough water to get to the treatment plant is a question that we don't know, and we won't know, and that's a year by year scenario.
Well, John, the factor of the equation that you left out there was the size of the reservoir. That would go a long way toward solving this problem. It seems if the other strictures are not, the other bottlenecks are bigger than the reservoir, then the reservoir is the thing we should be talking about. So can you direct maybe your comments to the reservoir?
Sure. So there are, I guess, two reservoirs. Well, the term reservoir is used in a few different ways. One would be a storage tank, which the city has two storage tanks, 500,000 gallons each. Those are located up on Reservoir Road. In the report, I noted, and this is part of the master plan, that the city has a deficiency in storage of 1.6 million gallons. And so that the master plan identifies adding additional storage at 1.6 million gallons. That storage is related to providing 3 days of city water supply, fire storage equal to a 4-hour event of hydrant use, plus an equalization storage. So the difference between the peak demand of the customers and the peak production of the treatment plant. That is one component that, that's the city at this point. The next big water project is to address that water deficiency, that reservoir. The other way that reservoirs are used are surface reservoirs. So the city has an impoundment on Turner Creek. It's about 3 miles upstream on Turner Creek. That is an earthen dam that literally controls the amount of water that's released through Turner Creek to the treatment plant. That impoundment is, it was initially installed to hold about 11 million gallons, in that range. There isn't this parcel was created. The city has limited land up there, so expanding that reservoir is not a realistic solution. We've talked about, is it viable to dredge that? But I think the number of 4 million gallons was thrown out. Keep in mind that that was only about 10 days worth of water based off how much water the city was using during the summer last year. So they were using over 400,000 gallons a day delivered to the city. So I'm not sure where that 4 million gallons came from, but just to give you a little perspective what that is.
What was the period of time of the water restrictions? Can you give us a feel for that? Was it a month? I'm sorry, I live out of town. If people in town want to step up and be on this planning commission, I will step out of the way, but and I'm sorry for my ignorance, but maybe a view from outside of town isn't a bad thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and display my ignorance. How long was the water restriction?
I don't have the exact dates in front of me. Sharon may know offhand.
My recollection was at least 2 months.
It was definitely August and September. I think it was
Yeah.
kind of at the beginning of August and into September.
I can check those dates if you want me to right now.
It was the height, the height of the summer season for sure. I mean, so it was at least 2 months.
I did have one more thing to add.
Okay, Ken.
That is small towns, they're hard to sustain. It's a miracle that we're still doing as well as we are. And the pinch comes when we don't want to grow, but systems wear out, specifically perhaps water systems and sewage systems, and government requirements increase, and a lot of money has to be spent to meet those requirements. And those costs go to the ratepayers. And if the number of ratepayers stays the same, the water bill continues to go up. And as it gets up to a certain levels, people decide not to move into town because utilities cost too darn much. And then the water bills continue to go up because the water bills are not spread over more people. So I am not anti-growth, because Yamhill needs to not have its water bills continue to go up and spread these costs over more people. And that's true of paving streets. So we're kind of addicted to growth in this world, this economy. And I don't want to lose sight of that. So I just want to let people to know that I'm not anti-growth, but boy, we've got a heavy responsibility here. And, going without water in your home is difficult. And if there's not sufficient flow for fire protection, and in fact, that the, filling a tender and getting it there and the gallons isn't sufficient. I mean, that was our fire chief saying, look, okay, we're going to do the best we can. We've got this handled, when it was an emergency and he's trying to pull together the best plan he can. But if we're now going to make that problem worse, it doesn't matter if we have brand new pipes to the south side of town, big 8-inch pipes. There's no water in them. We won't be able to control a fire event very effectively. So I think that might also be part of the developer's homework, is to assure, or at least give us some statistics and maybe some testimony from the fire chief that this is okay with him and we can put out fires, because right now it doesn't sound good if the flow isn't there, no matter how big the pipes are, come height of summer, when the fire danger is the greatest. So that's another concern on top of not being able to flush your toilets. So I'll end on that word.
Ken, the water restrictions started August 6th and they ended October 13th.
No. Sam, did you want to add anything?
No.
Okay. Well, I had a few things I wanted to say. And as a long-term resident of the city, I've seen the water bills increase, and understandably so. Water costs more money. I'm in agreement with Ken. I mean, I'm not against growth or responsible growth. And going through the water restrictions this summer for everyone inside as well as outside, we did a remarkable job. I mean, I saw the numbers every single day. Everybody tried so hard to conserve on water. Looking towards the future, it's of my opinion that the people that have been residents in the city, who have participated in the community for how many number of years they've lived here, whether it's 10, 20, 30 years or whatever, the burden has always gone to them with the water increases and everything. Adding an additional amount of homes when we do not have water, the water problem solved, flowing through the pipes and resolved at this point, in my opinion, is an irresponsible decision to make. And it's almost an impossible decision because we do need growth. We do need money. So it's kind of a catch-22. Again, I'm not against growth. I can see, the need for it. Until the infrastructure is in place, I feel that it puts a burden on the planning commission, on the city council, on the people that live here, because I've heard the concerns, not just this evening, but throughout the time. It's really kind of scary, there are a lot of older people in town. There are a lot of people on fixed incomes. When the services continue to increase, it makes the livability of the people that have lived here and supported the community. It puts a burden on them. And I know people want to come to Yamhill. It's a wonderful place to live. It's a wonderful community. But my concern is what about the people that have been here and the financial burden does fall on them. And I've never understood the outside water users, and God forbid, nobody wants to shut anybody off. But I don't know, what is the contract? I mean, they call it excess water, and they do use more of the water than the inside the city. What is the contract between the city of Yamhill and the outside water users? And are they really not going to be at risk if there is not enough water in the future? Because nobody needs to go without water. This is a planetary problem. It's not just Yamhill. These are my concerns as a citizen and as a planning commission member. And we've seen this over and over and over. We were told back in 2017 that we had plenty of water. That's not the case. So I urge the planning commission to be diligent on this, ask as many questions as you need to ask, be satisfied with the answers. And I'm sure that the builders and the engineers and they want to be just as responsible to the city of Yamhill and their citizens as they can possibly be. What I've heard tonight was a lot of controversy about water. We have other infrastructure problems that were brought up, such as the school. So that's pretty much all I need to say. I know that the money, $400,000 sounds like a really lot of money coming into the city. But it is, as Rocky said, a drop in the bucket to what we are going to have to financially pay in the future to have enough water to support even the current residents, let alone new ones coming in. So I just ask for responsible growth and ask that the commission, ask the tough questions, and then hopefully we can all come up with a solution and move forward for the betterment of everyone in Yamhill. And those are my comments.
Sharon, Carol, thank you. And thank you for your many, many years of service on the Planning Commission. And being there when we needed you and your experience and your dedication. I just really appreciate working with you. Thank you very much.
I appreciate your comments, Ken. I wished I could continue. I wished I could continue. That's not to be. So I guess moving on, Sharon, at this point, are there any final staff comments, or did we kind of hear from you, Walt, about what's coming in January?
Well, someone has to make a motion for the following. Could I suggest a motion?
Go right ahead.
Okay, that the record be held open until December 29th to allow the applicant to submit additional information. The record then will, at that point, that's 5 o'clock on December 29th. Other folks, opponents may provide additional information after that date, but must submit it no later than January 12th at 5 p.m. The Planning Commission will reconvene at 7 p.m. Here via Zoom on January 19th, at which time the applicant will have a chance just to rebut any additional evidence submitted by opponents, and the Planning Commission will then deliberate and make their decision.
So moved.
I was going to wait for somebody to repeat it.
Hey, Walt, you did ask for comment, and the one
Yes.
thing that I do want to state is under state law, anyone can submit additional evidence during that 14-day period.
Well, the way, looking at 197, it looks, the way it reads, you have 7 days, at least 7 days. But if someone wants to ask for additional comments based on your comments, they can ask for 7 days. There almost seems to be this perpetual movement. So I'm just thinking, just to make sure so we don't get a comment coming.
As I understand it, it is anyone can submit during that initial period, and then anyone can rebut any evidence submitted during that initial period during the second period, and then the record closes and the applicant gets a final argument with no additional evidence.
Right. Okay, well, this is what I'm reading in state law. If the hearing authority leaves the record open for additional written evidence, arguments, or testimony, the record shall be left open for at least 7 days. So we're providing 14. Any participant may file written request with the local government for an opportunity to respond to new evidence submitted during the period that the record was left open. If such a request is filed, then the hearing authority shall reopen the record for an additional 7 days. I was just trying to kind of split the, you give your stuff, the opponents give their stuff, and then you do the rebuttal. I want to make sure that we're just complying with state law here. And it seems to say that you, since you made the request, you get the first chance to submit information. I could be wrong, but
It's your show, so I'll defer, but you asked for comment, I gave it, and you're free to reject it as you choose, so.
okay, well, thank you. I will just restate that we keep the record open for the applicant until December 29th, 5 p.m. Any other testimony may be provided up until, I tell you what, I'd be willing to do it this way. Applicant submits information, new information up to 5 p.m. on December 29th. Additional information may be submitted up to January 12th at 5 p.m. And at that point, the hearing will reconvene on the 19th, 7 p.m. via Zoom, and the applicant has the opportunity for rebuttal. Does that balance off things, Mr. Hoyt?
That, under your interpretation, that's fine by me.
Okay. I need an attorney. You know,
I want to know who's.
Sounds like it.
yeah, exactly. I'm just sitting here going like, I've seen this like so many times, and it's like the more you read the details, it goes. So I think that's reasonable. Let's let the applicant have 2 weeks to submit. Then there's another 2-week period after that in which anyone else can submit additional material, and staff will return with a report and kind of a brief summary and final recommendations, and the applicant may have the rebuttal on the 19th.
When should we expect the staff report?
Probably on the 12th.
On the 12th? Okay.
Yes, I will do my darnest to get that week.
Oh, I'm lost where we are on the agenda here.
Okay,
I think Ken moved for that motion, so you guys need to have a second and then a vote. Is that correct, Walt?
that is correct.
I'll second.
Was that Shay or
That
Sam?
was Shay. That
Okay,
was Shay.
thank you.
All in favor by roll?
Aye.
Yep.
Were there any nays?
I didn't hear any. I heard just
Okay,
group I guess.
all ayes. Okay.
So I'm still lost to where we are here.
We are at number 17, I believe. Is that correct, Walt?
I think we've already asked questions to the applicant.
Yeah, basically, the public testimony is done. The hearing
Okay.
will be continued to the 19th with the stipulations on new information.
Okay, so we're at number 20 then.
Okay. So, okay, well, since we've already decided to continue the hearing or whatever, wait, make a motion to close, is that?
No, because you have closed public testimony.
Okay,
Well, yes, you are closing the hearing for tonight. And you've
Yes,
already continued it, correct?
okay, so could I entertain a motion from one of the commissioners to close?
Actually, you could just do it, Carol.
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
No, you're done. You're done.
I'm done,
Okay.
literally,
Oh, geez.
not funny.
We are adjourned.
We are adjourned.
Sharon, would you call me, please, right now, after the meeting?
Sure. Are you guys continuing? So you've closed the public hearing. Are you going to continue with the regular meeting?
I would hope so. And who just asked you to make a call? I didn't hear that.
That was Ken.
Oh, Ken, okay. Okay,
Well, we're not done yet tonight.
no, we are not yet. I'd like to finish the meeting up if we could. I know it's late. So the public hearing is now closed for December 15th, 2021. We're going to move on to our regular meeting, and is that okay with everybody? I mean,
Yes.
it's okay with everybody to continue on, okay. Okay, do I have to call to order the regular planning commission meeting for December 15th, 2021? Well, wait a minute. I'm on the wrong page here.
Yep.
Regular meeting.
You
Okay.
should be at public comment for the regular meeting.
Right.
Okay, public comment. Okay, is there any public comment for the regular meeting of the planning commission? Anything that's not on the agenda tonight?
Okay.
Which hearing?
I have 3 hands raised. Are you ready to?
I am ready. I'm just lost in my paperwork here, but go ahead. I'm ready.
I have a phone number ending in 04.
Okay. And you've unmuted them?
I'm asking them to unmute. I'm not.
I'm really lost. Paperwork.
I think, okay, there they are.
Okay.
Okay. So I had a comment on the other meeting, not this one. So I'm gonna not talk.
Okay.
Okay.
And I have Robert Davis.
Hi, Robert.
Hey, again. So am I missing the point here? Are you guys taking comments about the accessory structures that's on the agenda?
I don't know. Is it public comment is supposed to be for anything not on the agenda, Sharon? Am I correct with that, or?
We haven't sent out notice for the public. See, hold on.
Yeah, because we haven't.
Yeah, this is not a public hearing.
Yeah, so I mean, it's for anything that is, public comment is for anything that doesn't come up under business this evening, Robert. So if you had, a comment about something else, because we are going to be discussing the staff report that Walt came up with about the temporary structures and about the municipal code regarding reader board signs. Those are going to be in discussion tonight. So any other than that for public comment, which is what my understanding is.
Okay, so I'm confused. You are discussing the item 10.72.070 vehicle storage, or you're not?
Carol?
We are, okay, go ahead, Walt.
Okay. This is just put on the agenda as listed as unfinished business. Let me just note that today I notified DLCD of the proposed changes. And so we will, everything we discussed last meeting, nothing has changed. So I followed up with the commission's recommendations, and I've notified DLCD of the impending code amendments, and there will be to discuss the material. And again, I want to remind the commission that you are not facing a 120-day deadline with that. So you don't have to, that's not subject to the 120 days. So this is more of an update. DLCD was notified as of today, and we just wait for their comments.
I see. Okay. Well, that satisfied me. Otherwise, I'd go back to the water issue and present more information and more questions, but I'll leave that for another time, I guess.
Actually, you're still welcome to submit material after the 29th.
Yes, and we plan on doing that. Thank you.
Okay, real good.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you. And someone else, Sharon?
We have Sherry Wilson.
Okay. Hi, Sherry.
Hi, Carol. This is in reference to the Planning Commission. And I want to thank Carol for her 22 years of volunteer service on the Planning Commission, and want to make note that there were 3 positions available. There were 4 applicants. Of those 4 applicants, Carol was the only one available for any kind of comment during the meeting last week. One of the applicants had no comments on their application, just their name and address, no reason why they wanted to be on the Planning Commission or any kind of background of history, why they should be on the Planning Commission. And those 3 positions were filled by the other 3 people. And I really feel that was a slap in the face to Carol after all the years that she's been on the commission, and she's done a good job. So I just want to say shame on the city council for voting her off. They all said nay. So that's my comment. She's my friend, but she deserved to be treated better than that.
Thank you, Sharon. I appreciate that.
I have a question then. If there's only 5 positions and 3 were filled, uh, who was voted off the island? Am I not,
Carol.
on the planning? Well, I know, but there's still 3 others of us here.
Well, that's why I wanted Sharon to call me. I'm like, what's my
I'm
future
wondering
here?
if I'm not on the planning commission next year,
We,
you know, no one notified us. There's only 5 positions. Shay is, I'm sure, you know, we're all 3 of us are probably equally as, interested in this. Is that something that, Sharon can speak on?
Carol, would you like me to speak on this issue?
Yeah, go ahead.
We had 3 terms expire on December 31st. Those were Carol's. Sam's, yours expires on December 31st. And Trisha Player. Trisha Player submitted a resignation prior to that. We did have Carol submit an application. We did have a call from Sam Fox, and no application was submitted from Sam.
No. Don't
I-
twist that.
I-
So I've
I-
never had to submit an application before. When I was reinstated for the second 2 years, I never submitted an application then. You did not properly notify me that I needed to submit an application.
Conversed with the mayor. I asked her how she wanted to handle this. She decided to open it up, that there were 3 open positions, considering we had 3 expired. We had this reviewed. The code was reviewed by the attorney, which said that we were not obligated to reinstate or do any of those
Even
things.
notify me that I needed to reapply.
There was a comment made by the
Probably in the
mayor
post office.
to notify you. And I received
Well, I
word,
was never notified.
I was
So
received word from the staff member that you had called, and she
I
had.
paid my water bill. That's, wow. All right, whatever. I'm not gonna
just
argue with
conveying
you.
the
I'm not gonna argue
information.
with you.
What you should
Wow.
do is address this with city council, because this was handled by city council and the mayor. And staff did what was directed by the mayor and city council.
It's pretty clear.
Okay, I would like to make a comment here, and because it's going to be controversial, and I apologize for it. But I have seen a text message between you, Sharon, and Lori, that the mayor directed you to post these 3 positions being open, and this text message went out on October 24th, that she wanted you to post these 3 positions on the city website because there were 3 commission members that terms were up, and the mayor did not want them to continue because they were not doing their jobs. That is in writing in a text message on October 24th. So although I did submit an application, I was hoping to be reseated on the planning commission. It was deemed that was not going to happen. But I have to say that in the 22 years of service, I have only reapplied to the planning commission 2 times in 22 years. I have been asked to serve all those other 2 years stints. This time, there was obviously an agenda that I was not going of. And this I want to be in public record, because it was shady. I understand what Sam is saying, but there is an existing text message that I can show you, Sharon, that you said to Lori that you were directed by the mayor to post this on the city website because she did. There were 3 members that were.
What a dirty town.
That were
the mayor
not
should be
doing
ashamed
their
of
jobs.
herself.
And that you
All
said that
because
you
we
were
brought
gonna-
up the corruption in this town.
And you said that you
Wow,
were going
what
to
a
check.
thanks for volunteering for 4 years.
Sharon, you said that you were going to check with legal on this issue. Now, I reapplied. I was the only one that spoke during the meeting. And it doesn't matter if my application was in before the other two gentlemen got voted in. It wouldn't matter if I was first. You were not going to reseat me. The city council was not going to reseat me for whatever reasons they deemed fit. So that's what I have to say. And I'm sorry that I sound like I'm emotional about it. I was hoping to serve, but those are the facts. And whoever's listening, tonight's meeting is my last meeting because I was voted out after 22 years of sitting and trying to work for the citizens of Yam Hill. So those are my personal feelings. I'm hurt. I'm extremely discouraged about the direction of the town and extremely concerned. And I hope that anyone listening, citizens, make sure that your city is working for you because that is their job. They do not work for the city hall. They work for the citizens that live here. And with that, those are my comments. I don't know if I was muted. I hope not.
Loud and clear, Carol, loud and clear.
Okay, well, that's just the way it went down. And I think all of the other commissioners need to know it. And they got what they wanted. I'm no longer sitting on the planning commission.
You know, Carol, I only had a brief, very brief period of time to work with you, but I enjoyed it thoroughly and I will miss your presence here quite a bit.
No, I'll still be around, Shay. Thank you very much.
Oh, I'll bet you will be.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere.
Carol, the first time I realized that you were still on the commission was when I heard your great accent last month.
Well,
And
you still understand me.
I understand you perfectly. So
Thank you, Walt.
I am so, well, the other commissioners may not know, but boy, you and I served like maybe 4 or 5 years together. And yeah, I'm not going to dip my toe into local politics, but I'll just say that it was a pleasure, and not only pleasure with you as a commissioner, but as just a good, decent person.
Thank you, Walt. That's appreciated. I appreciate that.
And I hope I didn't confuse you too much today.
No, that's easily done, Walt. That doesn't take much.
Now, I forgot, Williamsburg or Greenpoint?
What?
Williamsburg or Greenpoint?
Greenpoint?
I was thinking Brooklyn.
Worcester, Mass.
Worcester. What
Worcester.
are you thinking?
What are you thinking?
You're a child.
Wicked Worcester.
Worcester.
Thanks.
I tell my son, yeah, it's Worcester. He goes, no, it's Worcester. It's
Oh,
Worcester.
no way. No, no. That's like Peabody, Mass.
Yeah.
You know?
Went to school in Durham.
Anyway, well, moving on. I'm sorry if I've made people upset. But you know, I would be upset myself, so it's not the way I want to go out. But anyway, let's continue on. So public comment is over, I'm assuming? I guess so.
There's no more hands raised if that's what you're asking.
Okay, thank you. So going on to unfinished business. An update on the ordinance for municipal code 10.64.030 regarding reader board signs.
Yeah, again,
You did some work on that?
the material was sent into DLCD. And that same comment goes for item B on the temporary structures. So that's off to Salem, and we'll see if they have any comments. Otherwise, I just put a report together with findings on adopting that. And again, the planning commission does not face a time limit on that. But
Okay.
Okay.
So that will be handled in the next meeting. I'm sorry.
Yes,
Okay, so that, I'm just going to continue that on to the January.
right. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
There
Can
will
you have
be
your
a
hand-
formal notice with that too.
Okay, all right, and that might answer some of Robert's questions, and you are going to have a public hearing on that, I heard you.
Yes,
Okay, Ken, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, well, last time we asked you to go back to our previous planner and ask him what was behind the movement about temporary structures. There was some part of the code that we had not covered. It seemed like we had covered everything already, but did you do that?
yes, I did. I did that on a couple of times.
Right.
And John's been out of the office, so to speak. And so he will be back in the office tomorrow. And he said he would contact me on Thursday. So I have a paper trail on this. He knows I'm anxious. I was really hoping to give you some information. In fact, there was a second thing you wanted to know about, and that was the UGB amendment in terms of where the city is with that, or where John was with that. So I asked both of those questions, and I'm hoping for a response tomorrow. And once I get them, I'll just share them. If you don't mind, I'll share them with Sharon, and then we could bring it up at the next meeting as well. Fair enough?
Thank you. Thank you. That
Okay.
was kind of germane to us going ahead on the temporary structures.
Right. Well, again, once we get there, if there's, next month, if you don't see a need, you don't have to proceed.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So Sharon, Carol, what's next on the agenda?
Well, I guess just commissioner comments and discussion. We can announce the next planning commission meeting is going to be on January 19th, and these things will be addressed. And if there's any further commissioner comments or discussions at this time, please go ahead. Anybody?
I do have one.
Okay, well.
I wish everyone a very Merry Christmas.
Oh, thanks.
And also best wishes for the coming new year. I hope things, maybe one of these days, we can all actually sit down at a commission meeting.
Oh, party on.
Party on. There we go.
Party on.
There you go.
Jenny Morrison has a hand raised. Did you want to take additional public comment at this time?
You know what? Why not? Go ahead, Jenny. It's Christmas.
Hey, I didn't think I'd be on this late. I have a question. So now hearing this information about Carol and Sam and the 3 new positions, what is the situation with now this vote on the development? And this is going to be then voted on by these new people who are not part of the committee right now. Is that the situation?
That is the situation.
That is
How
the
is
situation.
that? Help me understand how that is right or fair.
You'd have to help us understand it first. I don't
Well-
know. I don't know what's going to happen. They're going to have the staff reports. They're going to have all the information. They're going to do the best job that they can, Jenny. I
And
just-
plus, Carol, this meeting was recorded, so
Yeah.
they can always, in fact, strongly suggest they review the meeting.
Yes, please do. And stay involved in your city. You know, I mean, I think this has really brought out the best in people in kind of the worst way. Because, people are starting to pay attention to what's happening, and that's what the city needs. It's your voice that we represent. So make your voices heard. Make your voices heard.
Well, I appreciate everyone's service and especially you, Carol and Sam.
Thank
So
you.
thank you.
Thank
And
you.
I'm sorry for the way things went down.
Well, oops, I just lost my screen. Can you help me get the screen back? I'm sorry. I don't know where
We can see you. Don't do anything funny.
Uh-oh. I won't make any funny faces then. There I go. Thank you. Okay, so now where are we at? I guess if there are no comments, Sam, do you have anything to say, or Shay, or Ken, or Walt, or other? Best of luck in 2022.
Same to you, Carol.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So I will call for maybe a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Anyone want a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Shay. Well, thank you all for your support, and thank you all for your kind words. It's very much appreciated. It really lightens the burden a little on my heart. So anyway, we will see you as I will be in the audience.
Ah, very good.
Okay, so we can still party on, Walt.
And sorry about the Brooklyn comment. Sorry about that.
Oh my gosh, I know it. You could have only said worse if you said Jersey. That
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
to my
it
next
was,
stand
yeah,
up.
Yeah.
Well, good night, everyone, and Merry Christmas.
Good night, all. Merry Christmas.
Good night. Merry Christmas.
Whoa.